Louis van Schalkwyk, who's the head of technical operations at Digicloud Africa, joins us for this episode of What's Next. Louis, great to see you. Hope that you're well and hope that business is good. But I'm sure that when you're doing the business that you're doing, I'm sure it is pretty good because you've got some great clients. And it's just such a fascinating industry and how it's evolving and how the cloud has just moved completely to what it was, say, 10 years ago to where it is today. And we often hear of machine learning, ML, all of these acronyms that are used. And yes, it's a buzzword these days, but machine learning is such an important aspect for business today. Can you just give it to us in understanding in layman's language what is ML and is it really important for businesses? Is what I'm asking.
Okay, thank you, Aki, for having me on your show. So absolutely, ML is a subset of AI, and really it's just about getting value from your data, right? So it's about looking back at your historical data and then trying to predict what's going to happen next, in order to act in a proactive manner. It allows companies to identify patterns and correlation between things that they might not have considered previously. And all of this hopefully leads to an increase in market share, and to better position themselves in the market overall. ML opportunities are bountiful all across multiple sectors, from retail, manufacturing, healthcare. All of these have got hundreds of business critical use cases. There are two studies that I like to reference. The first one is by Accenture, where they came to the conclusion that 68% of companies currently are unable to realize measurable value from their data. The second study was by Capgemini, where they found that AI spending this year, 2022 alone, will reach $7.3 billion from retail organizations. So that begs the question, Why are so few companies able to realize value from their data? Well, the answer is simple. It's not that easy. It's quite difficult to get it right. Yes. Why is it so difficult? Well, because data is multi-formatted, right? It's often siloed across organizations and teams. It's structured data, unstructured data. Some of the data is within your organization. Some data is coming from external sources. So it's just a lot of data everywhere, and it's really difficult to get it right so that you can get value from it. Google, is seen as an innovation leader in applying data and AI to real-world applications. If you think of using things on your phone like Google Maps that you use every day, Gmail with spam is filtered out, YouTube where it recommends the next video to watch. So all of these products has got AI and machine learning baked into them. So Google operates these products and services at scale. They're utilized by billions of users across the globe on a daily basis. So Google truly is an innovative leader when it comes to implementing ML in real-world organizations, right? So to help companies gain value from their data, Google launched a platform called Vertex AI. And Google's goal with Vertex AI is to provide a tool set to empower every enterprise out there to transform their business using AI.
Okay, so I mean, let's touch on AI and machine learning. And so what it sounds to me like, and it's very clear, is that there's so much data that we're creating, and what ML does is make sense of that data, and really help businesses in becoming more agile, growing, understanding more about themselves, more about the customer, whatever it might be. But can you give us some practical examples of how ML has been put to use in organizations to obtain the benefits that you talk about and that you've just mentioned?
Absolutely. So I was speaking to one of our partners last week. It's a company called Deep Learning Cafe. Now, it's quite an interesting organization because they set out to solve difficult problems using machine learning, right? So one of the examples that they shared with me last week was work that they've done with an organization that's exploring for natural gas out in the Free State. So this company acquired land to the tune of 180,000 hectares where they have exploration rights to look for natural gas. And same as drilling for water, you pick a spot, you drill, and then if you strike, you're in luck. If you don't, you just wasted an awful lot of money. So it's crucial for them to pick the right spots where they want to drill. So Deep Learning Cafe took a bunch of data, so borehole data that they had on hand, geospatial data, weather data, and they took all of that different pieces of information and they built a custom ML model. And they used that model to create a heat map and to predict where they would have the highest likelihood of finding natural gas. So the
Wow.
last 3 sites that they picked using ML was a strike. So 3 out of 3 for the last 3 spots that they identified, which is tremendous. And then as they drill more sites, more data is gathered, which just means that their models become smarter through reinforcement learning. So every time they drill a new site, they get more data, the model improves, and as time goes on, it just becomes smarter and better.
That's such a brilliant example. So it's actually got the information they gathered before had actually nothing to do with the gas, but it had related stuff. People digging in the earth for boreholes, for example, and the heat. And you combine those three. I think that's such a brilliant example of ML. It's extraordinary how accurate the information that came out from the machine learning was. So, I mean, that obviously saved this company a lot of money from just digging all over the place to try and find where the real source was. You had another example. I interrupted you a second ago.
Yeah, so absolutely. The second example is maybe a bit more on the political spectrum. I'm not sure if you've heard of the Zondo Commission and the Gupta leaks, but those are 2 things that took place in South Africa that produced a massive amount of data, documents, right? The Zondo Commission alone produced around 60,000 transcripts. So you can go to the website and download the documents. The Gupta email leaks consisted of another, roughly 60,000 entries. So how do you make sense of that amount of data? I mean, to hire a team of people to read through it and then draw connections between things will simply take forever. So Deep Learning Cafe used ML to make sense of that data. They have a product called Doc Insights that's built on top of Google's Vertex AI, and it provides intelligence to automatically classify, find, and extract key information from large volumes of unstructured data. So in this case, they were able to extract things like places, names of people, entities, and they were able to then uncover relationships and links between them. So it's not just searching for someone's name through a document. It's about, in an email, you might refer to something using a certain word. In the transcript of Zondo, they might have used a different word, but those words are closely correlated, and using something like ML, they're able to match up at, hey, these 2 entities, there's a link between these things, between these dates, between these people, and this location. So they build up that whole solution, which simply would not have been possible without technology of this type.
That's amazing. And of course, you get a much better view and a much better understanding of such a complex issue as the Zondo Commission, as you mentioned. Now, you mentioned earlier, I mean, at Digicloud, you're a major proponent of Vertex AI. Could you explain what this solution entails? What exactly does Vertex AI do?
Okay. So if you think of an organization that would like to use AI and ML, right? There are a lot of different role players within an organization. It's not a one product or solution set that'll meet requirements of everyone. So you might have a product manager or a business executive, and they want to use natural language to receive up-to-date and meaningful responses, right? So they might want to say, give me the sales forecast for the Western Cape for the next quarter, or compare it against last quarter. Then you have the data scientists. They dabble in different aspects of building and validating models, so they get into the actual code of writing the models. Then you have the ML engineer, and that engineer is responsible for taking the model developed by the data scientist and running it and deploying it in production, making sure it's online, making sure it's available, and monitoring the effectiveness of those models, right? So there are several role players within an organization, and they all have different needs. So Google has thoughtfully built a comprehensive platform to serve all the role players within that life cycle. Vertex AI offers the building blocks for different applications, whether it's vision, video, natural language translation, structured data. For those users who want to venture deeper into custom model development and managing model operations at scale, Google provides the core services for data science, machine learning, and ML ops through a single platform. It basically enables every company to be an AI company by reducing the challenges that AI model creation has along the journey, and only requiring human intervention where you need judgment or creativity in a path. So in short, Aki, Vertex AI is a combination of services from Google that provides a simple way for customers to implement ML solutions. It provides the tools to support your entire ML workflow across different model types with varying levels of ML expertise. It's essentially the coming together of all things AI and ML in a single interface, in a single API that put customers in the best position to integrate ML into their daily operations.
Okay, and it sounds to me like it's, when you start talking about AI and ML, it sounds very complex and something that businesses need to spend a lot of time on, and you need to hire additional people. It sounds to me like Vertex AI takes a lot of that process out of the way. Yes, you have to have qualified people to do it, but there's a lot of the heavy lifting and the stuff that takes place up in the cloud that you don't have to necessarily worry about. But let's look at those benefits of Vertex AI unifying Google Cloud's existing ML offerings, because they are over there. And how does this do it in a single environment, for example?
Okay, good question. Okay, so let me try and answer that question by first maybe talk a little bit about Google BigQuery. So Google BigQuery is a product or a service that was launched back in 2010, right? Today, it's a leader when it comes to enterprise data warehousing. It's used by thousands of enterprise businesses around the world. It's a serverless petabyte scale solution that allows customers to ingest and store data and then run standard SQL queries and get result sets back within seconds. So you can query terabytes of data within seconds with Google BigQuery. So it's important to understand that, because when you look at ML, you need a lot of data to train your models, right? And BigQuery is the perfect place for customers with a lot of data to store and work with their data. So when Google built Vertex AI, they made sure that integration with BigQuery was there from day one. You don't want to move data around when you're working with a large amount of data. So having your data in a place where you can train your models from a single source where you store it just makes sense. But now, if you look at an enterprise data warehouse and you compare that to building out ML models, it's not the same game you're playing anymore. If you're building out ML models, it's not just about training, a data set or training a model with a data set. That's in fact a small part of it. It's about a whole life cycle. Initially you need to gather and clean the data that you want to use. Then your data scientists need to develop a model. They need to train and evaluate the models to see how successful they are. Then you need to deploy those models to production, where you need to keep an eye on operations. Are they serving good responses? Are they operational? Are they sound? You need to monitor and evaluate those models, and then that all is a cycle that repeats. It's all an iterative process. So it's not a set it up once and forget about it. It's an iterative model that must be monitored. So Vertex AI is a single place where you can do all of that through a practice called MLOps. So MLOps is an engineering culture and practice, and it aims to unify your machine learning system development and machine learning systems operations. Vertex AI is that single environment that makes it possible. And then obviously the integration with BigQuery means you don't have to move your data around. You can train your models with data that you already have in BigQuery.
Okay, all right. Well, that makes sense. Look, it does sound complex, but it doesn't need to be complex, because I think that a lot of the simplicity has been built into the actual platform. But I guess somebody's probably going to be asking themselves watching this, so what if my teams don't have extensive ML experience? What do you do then? Will they still be able to use Vertex AI?
Absolutely. So Vertex AI offers companies just starting out, maybe don't have that many, developers or ML skills, the ability to add ML and AI applications to their existing environment straight away. So there are pre-trained models and APIs available that doesn't require any coding other than the integration, of course. And these models are hosted by Google. They are pre-trained models. Google keeps them up to date. All you have to do to integrate is make an API call. And those tools can be used for things like analyzing text, for sentiment analysis, if you want to, see if people are happy with what they're tweeting about you, or things like that. You can identify objects in images and in videos. You can use document AI to analyze documents. You can convert text to audio, audio to text, translate between languages. So there's a bunch of things that you can plug into from Google that is AI or ML built in, and just use straight away in your application. You don't need your own data. You don't need to build any models or host any models. You could just plug in the API and start using it. But keep in mind, though, those tools and services are available to everyone else out there. So they're not really going to give you the full competitive advantage that you might be looking for when you look at ML. Now, just a step
Okay.
beyond that, if you have your own data, there's also a service called AutoML. So AutoML is a great way for companies who's got their own data but not necessarily have extensive ML skills, for them to build high quality custom models using their own data. So using text,
Right.
images, it's a no code, low code environment where you can bring your own data. It's a graphical user interface. You can click through it, and Google will guide you through the whole process to build that model. And Google will then analyze, from there, they call it the model zoo. They'll analyze a whole bunch of models to see which model of ML will yield the best results based on your tool set. So I guess, Aki, Vertex AI aims to meet customers at their skill level and then provide, the tools to gain value and grow their development skills as they go on. For companies looking to evaluate where they are and map out a plan to improve, I suggest they have a look at a white paper published by Google. It's called the AI Adoption Framework. Although it's published by Google, it is platform agnostic. So even if you're not using Google for any of these services, it's still worth a read. Basically, they break down all the interconnected focus areas of deploying ML applications through an organization. There's about 7 or 8 of them, of those areas. And then for each of those areas, they break it down into a maturity phase. So maturity phase could either be tactical, so that's where we just spoke about, maybe you just using out-of-box APIs where someone else, another vendor, manages the AI in the background for you, and you just utilize what they've put out there. But then you move on to the second phase where it's a strategic phase, and you have multiple, custom ML models that are deployed and maintained in production. And then in the strategic phase, you start realizing the strategic value that ML can add to your organization, and the perception moves beyond just hype and buzzwords and starting to become pivotal, to accelerate the business and creating a competitive advantage. Then the final stage is
Okay.
transformational, where ML plays a key role in the organization to stimulate innovation, and it basically transform your whole organization to be an AI ML focused organization, where you continuously train and retrain models in production. So it's important to understand where your organization is in terms of maturity phase in the different focus areas. Because if you analyze your organization, you might be transformational in some areas, but you might be tactical in other areas. So it's important to achieve overall success, to first identify where you are now, and then to map out a journey or a roadmap, to get you into a more mature space.
Okay. And how does Vertex AI help users, for example, to train and compare their different business models?
Okay, so to compare the different models, maybe we're getting a little bit technical now, but Vertex AI offers a model registry, which essentially allows you to centrally manage and govern all your Vertex AI and BigQuery ML models. From there, you have the ability to register, organize, track, and also version your ML models, which allows you to save and compare metrics to ensure your models improve over time. If you deploy your models to Vertex Prediction Service, which serves your models, you can proactively monitor the performance of those models. You can monitor for signals, for a model's predictive performance. You can issue alerts when those signals deviate. And then you can diagnose the models and identify the cause for the deviation. For example, what changed, when did it change, how did it change? And then based on that, you can update the model by perhaps triggering a model retraining pipeline. As the new data comes in, your model can start to drift and become less effective, in which case you need to retrain it with updated data. There's also managed experiment tracking for faster model selection, which is simply a central dashboard for training and evaluation runs across different frameworks and environments with a single user interface. So from there, you can quickly compare experiments and select the best model that suits your needs. And then lastly, you can also search and discover for experiments across the organization with ease. So it just makes sharing and collaboration with different teams a lot easier.
All right. Okay, a bit technical, as you said, but I mean, you've explained that pretty well. So I'm watching this. I'm a CIO, a CTO, a CEO, and my company says, listen, we need to get our heads around this, machine learning and AI. What role does a company like Digicloud Africa play in helping businesses get the full advantage of Vertex AI? What steps do they need to do? How can you help my business?
Okay, great question. So maybe let me start by explaining who we are and what we do. So Digicloud Africa is Google Cloud's enablement partner for the continent of Africa, right? So we're enrolled under Google's distribution initiative. However, we're not a distributor in a classical sense of the word. I mean, we don't go and buy a bunch of cloud and keep it in warehouses and then sell it on. Instead, we have a very strategic and focused approach to getting Google's cloud technology and services in the hands of customers and partners out there so that they can get value from it, right? So first we recruit, onboard, and support resellers to ensure they get the most out of Google's reseller program. So we work with customers on things like a road to success. It's a model that we've developed to get partners to grow and specialize in specific region, specific areas. So if you tell me you're looking for a partner, that specializes in ML in that specific area with that specific vertical, we want to be able to take you to the partner with the deep skills needed to help you achieve your goals, right? So for partners enrolling and entering the Google reseller space, we want to make sure that they get the most benefits out of Google's reseller program, that they're on a road to success. We do joint marketing campaigns. We help with in the sales cycle initially. Different partners of different requirements depending on where they are in their journey, whether they're just starting out or whether they've been in operation for 10 years. So all our efforts are aimed at building out a network of highly skilled, highly specialized Google Cloud resellers, Google Cloud partners across the continent of Africa. What that means in turn for end customers, if they want to implement a Google Cloud solution, or if they want to implement an AI or ML solution, it means that they have access to not just one or two, but a network of highly skilled, highly specialized partners that they can work with. And often, especially with larger organizations and enterprises, we see that they don't necessarily just work with a single partner. Organizations will leverage different partners depending on the areas that they specialize in.
Okay, so I guess you guys, what I'm hearing from you is that you offer that flexibility, especially in the world of today where you look at different organizations and how they've spread across their IT infrastructure, and how they've deployed cloud in different areas. You allow at Digicloud Africa that kind of flexibility to deal with the agile environment that's out there.
Absolutely, yeah, spot on.
Fantastic. Fascinating discussion. Louis van Schalkwyk, who is the head of technical operations at Digicloud Africa, an incredible world we're living in today. And, if you are a business person who's watching this or a company that's watching this, and you realize, listen, we need to get ahead of the curve with machine learning and do something with our data. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. It sets you out from the rest, makes you more competitive. Louis, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me, Aki.